I always wanted to be a writer, but in actual fact, that's not how I thought my life would end up. I had a deep love and affection for film. I loved film, and that was where it all began for me. I started out doing stop motion and just mucking around with a bunch of toys and sets, which I built. I was very good at building sets. I had a real passion for it. And set design, lo and behold, would be the key to where I would take my career later on in life. But I really enjoy all aspects of film, from special effects to lighting and set design and producing and creating these incredible worlds. I think film fascinated me as an artist. I wanted to create films, but not the conventional way. I didn't like people very much. I didn't want to use actors. I wanted to use my own props and toys and things. And I always laugh when I think about how did I ever expect a film career to ever take off when I'm not really a people person. But it's funny how you start out life doing one thing and being really passionate about it and building these extraordinary sets and creating these amazing stories with toys. And then later on in life, you find another way to use those skills. And for my latest book, We Are Not Alone, that's exactly what happened. I found myself looking into my past and recalling the extraordinary stories and sets that I used to come up with. And essentially that was the backbone for my new book. That was what I wanted to do, but I wanted to do it in comics, not film. I wanted people to look at it and think, wow, this is extraordinary. How's he done this? And I used everything from blankets to cardboard boxes and polystyrene, recyclable stuff, stuff that you find on the street. And that was how I did it. And it was a lot of fun. And I think if I ever do more comics in the future, that's exactly what I'm going to do again, because it is a fun process, coming up with creative ways to create small-scale worlds. I ended up going into writing books, and I did a lot of books. I published 13 now, and it was so much fun to create these books. It's a great way to tell stories, writing books. But for me, Amazon was a godsend. An absolute godsend. Publishing on Amazon simplified everything for me, because I spent a great deal of my early years looking for a publisher, and of course the old story was you can't be published unless you have an agent. And the catch-22 of it was you couldn't have an agent unless you'd been published. So I thought that was a ridiculous situation, and it led me to think, well, how can I get my books out there? How is this going to be possible? And one day I was talking to someone and they said, well, why don't you just publish on Amazon? I said, what's Amazon? Well, I knew where Amazon was, but I knew nothing about Amazon publishing. I had no idea that you could, it certainly wouldn't cost anything. And your book would be out there for the whole world to see. They said, there is one catch. You've got to promote it yourself. And promotion was one thing that I actually enjoyed doing, so I didn't care. And along the way, you meet people, you do little interviews and podcasts, and eventually books start to move. You get reviews. it was a great way to start out. And I really love working through Amazon. I mean, essentially, I'm my own publisher, I'm my own distributor, I'm my own boss. And that's the best way to work creatively, because you decide when it comes out. There's no deadlines, there's no rules, just write it, format it right, publish it, get it out there, and then it just becomes this amazing thing that you can hold in your hands. One of my other passions is photography. I love art. I love photography. Sometimes I see things and I just have to shoot it. I like taking photos. I like capturing moments. It's one of those things that has followed me around my whole life. I've always been interested in trying different things, going to different places and just capturing moments that mean something to me. And I also love poetry, which is why when I released this book, I thought, well, this is a book that I have to have in my little library, because it really doesn't just capture some of my greatest photography, but it also captures some of my poetry. When you can look at something and see the beauty in it, it has to be captured, because it carries meaning. And when you can capture that lightning in a bottle by putting it in a book or putting it in a painting or a film, that is when it becomes art, and it's out there for everyone else to enjoy. And that is a beautiful thing. If you can just capture a moment or a story or an idea and share it with the world, I think that is that's what's so appealing about art, what's so appealing about being an artist. And I've been obsessed with that for many years. I love to paint, I love to write, and I love film. And I really feel like in my books I've tried to capture the best of these talents and try to put them in a different use. The Debs trilogy was really the first of my work to get any kind of recognition at all. I basically did 3 reasonably short novels, and with the sequel I did some illustrations as well, and they were simple illustrations. I wasn't much of a drawer, but I did have an interest in sketching. Obviously, I love sketching. And I ended up doing drawing the cover of Way of the Sword, which was my Japanese kung fu novel. It was quite long, actually. For me, it was probably the longest work I'd done at that point. And then later I got even more intense when I did the Sherlock Holmes books, which were basically reimaginings of Arthur Conan Doyle's famous work. This was a reimagining of the Study in Scarlet, and I drew the cover for it, and I was very proud of it. So when I did the sequel, which was a reimagining of The Sign of 4, I also took the liberty of drawing that. And then later I got even more ambitious with Tales of Terror, and that was my first attempt at doing anything that resembled a comic book. People were disappointed that there weren't comics all the way through it, but it really was the beginning. I wanted to see if I could do comics, just to have a crack at it. And I didn't have the confidence to do a book full of comics, but there were comic strips in there, and I felt pretty good after I'd done a few of those. The Divine Madness, which only came out this year, it was one of 2 books that came out late this year near Halloween. This was my first horror novel, and I did 2 versions. I was so proud of it, obsessed with it really. I ended up doing this version here, which is the paperback and Kindle version. And then there's another version for hardcover, which has actually been revised and extended. This book had some typos in it too, and typos just really annoy me. So I made sure that the special edition didn't have anything in it that pissed me off. And what I did with the Depths trilogy, to put it quite simply, I put the 3 books together. It ended up being over 600 pages, which isn't bad for 2 years' work. This is over 60,000 words. It was a wonderful experience writing the Depths trilogy. I thought the first one and the second one got such wonderful reviews. This was a way to give something back to the fans, to so that they could have the whole collection in one volume, sort of like an omnibus of the 3 books, which arguably are still my greatest work. This was one of the sets I built for the comic. Really nothing to it, really. It's a cardboard box that's been cut. I painted it and did the brickwork. One of the things I liked about this set that I actually designed is the door, which folds out. And that was all done so I could do shots with the door open and shots with the door closed. This is another cardboard box cut and turned into another set, this is after I've done the violent scene on there. These sets will probably be destroyed or thrown out later on, which is the tragedy of any Hollywood set, really. It's used and then it's tossed away like it's nothing. That's the life story of a set. That's what happens. So yeah, basically I started out one way in life, wanting to be a filmmaker, and I ended up being an author instead. Not to say that I'll never be a filmmaker, but at this point in time it doesn't seem likely. But that was where I ended up, and I'm not disappointed. I'm very happy with what I've managed to do with my life. And now 13 books under my wings. I mean, that's quite an achievement, and I'm very proud of that. So, of course, I'll keep writing. I think that's my calling in life. It's what I want to do. Why stop now?